TipTut.
Hello everybody and welcome back to TipTut. Today we're taking a look at this folded ribbon effect for our Intro to Infographics in Motion series. Last time we took a look at a pie chart and making a 3D rotating pie chart in space kind of thing, and this time we're taking a look at folded ribbons. Feel free to go and check out that other episode if it's going to interest you. If not, feel free to just dive right into this one. You don't have to do them in any particular order, which hopefully should be useful for you. So as you can see, we've got these sort of folded ribbons here that exist in 3D space. You could bodge this quite easily with 2D space if the camera isn't going to move, but if you did want to incorporate this with a camera, it's best to do it as a 3D set of objects. So let's just dive right in. We'll start by creating a new composition. We'll call it ribbon. 1920 by 1080, 30 frames per second for 5 seconds is fine. We'll just hit OK there. Right, so the first thing you want to do is just create a shape. We're going to create a rectangle and we're going to make it the right yellow color. I'm just going to bring up my color palette there. Make it the right yellow. Okay, great. So we're going to need to reposition this anchor point. I can use Motion V2 to do so and just pop it over there. However, if you don't have that, you can use the pan behind tool to just click and move that around. And this is important because that's the point at which these shapes are going to rotate. Okay, and now at this point, we probably want 3 of them. So we can have a left-hand section, a section which the fold is in, and a section which is the rest of it after the fold. So we'll bring up our scale keyframe by just hitting S, and we'll duplicate the layer twice with Control D. Okay, and then we'll just rename them to keep things neat. So left, fold, and right. Perfect. Let's grab all of these, unlink the scale, and begin to shrink them down. Okay, so with the left section, we probably want the scale to be about 30% of its original size. The fold will go to maybe 20, and the right hand side will have 50. Now, these will all change when you move them into 3D space anyway, and you'll have to redo them, but it's good to start off with. So we'll just grab these and make sure they're roughly positioned in the right areas. So you can see now we've got 3 different sections, the section of our left hand side, the section for the fold, and the section for the right, which if you look at this example here, you can clearly see where each of those sections relates to each other. Okay, so first thing to do is to make this the right color, which is a slightly darker shade of yellow that I've got there in my palette. Okay, and make these layers exist in 3D space. The first thing we can do though is, to make it a bit easier, line these up in 2D space so that they're all connected, like so. And then pin these or pick whip these to each other. So we want the right hand side to react with the fold, and we want the fold to react to the left hand side. And what this does is, it means when we rotate the left, then the fold follows it. And when we rotate fold, the right follows it. And I'll show you what that means if I just bring up rotation like so and spin this around. You can see that that second shape follows it through, which is quite useful for us. Okay, so bring up rotation on all of those and turn them all into 3D layers by selecting the 3D layer icon there. Okay, so now we've got 3 3D shapes which exist in 3D space. Perfect, exactly what we need. So we now need to just create the fold. Okay, so let's fold this first one back using the rotate function. And I think it's Y rotation. Yeah, that's correct. We'll just rotate that all the way back, say -90, and then put the right hand side with a rotation of +90. Now, as you can see, that immediately takes a step down, and then it looks like we've just decreased the height of this shape here. But if I were to add a camera with layer new and camera, and then use this camera to orbit around, you can see that the shape does actually exist as a 3D space shape in a 3D space, okay? But you can also see that our shapes have been extended somewhat if I go back to the scale, because we've moved them into 3D. So this is where we have to recompensate for that. And the best way to do it is to look at it from 2 different angles at the same time. So let's pop down to our select view layout option and choose 2 views horizontal. And what this does is it gives us an active camera and a view from a different angle of our choice. Okay, now you can see at the moment that our shape is a bit longer than it was before. And this represents this view that we can see, but from the bottom underneath it, which is why we can only see the blue lines. If I were to select this fold shape, you can see that it highlights the same fold shape in both of those. Then if I were to go to scale on all of these and bring this down, voila, you can see that that does actually affect it in both views, because it's not a duplication of work, it's just a change in view, and you're looking at two views at the same time. So that's fine. Let's shrink this one down a little bit as well to about there. And we're probably going to want to push this rotation back just a little bit more so that it folds back in on itself. So let's push that up to -135, see what that looks like. So it doesn't look super, super great. I don't think it's quite pushed far enough. Let's make it 150. Too far. Let's go for 140. Oops, -140. Yeah, that works. And then we have to push this shape back by the same amount that we just increased it by. So I think that has to go to +140. Is that correct? No, it is not. Let's try again. Rotate that around to roughly the right area. 180. Nope. This does take a bit of guesswork unless you're very good at maths. So let's try 174. That's the wrong way. 174.5. Try 175. Oh, that's a bit too far. So let's have 174.75. That looks pretty flat. Not quite there though. 174.9. Yeah, there we go. So that looks pretty flat to me. And then we just need to stretch this back out again with the scale. So let's see, there's a bit of messing around to get it to work. Once you do, it's exactly what you need. Okay, so we have our shape. At the moment, we can't see any of the 3D-ness of it because we're looking directly down from the top. Okay, so what we actually want to do is click our camera tool and click C to bring up the unified camera tool and just scrub through it by pressing C again until you reach the orbit tool. Then hold shift and just drag the mouse up slightly with the click. And you'll see you start to look at it from an angle. So you can choose the angle that you want, that you're most happy with. I think about there. Okay. And voila, we have our 3D shape. So let's position this a bit better. I'm just going to press C until the translate camera tool comes up, and we're going to position it in the center like that. Okay, perfect. And in these other views, you actually get quite a nice view of the camera using these sort of purple and white lines here. So we've got our shape. It exists in 3D space. We now just need to animate it, which is pretty easy. You can probably guess how already we do it. It's with the scale tool. Just keyframe all of the scales on all of the layers and move forward by about, let's say 2 seconds. Control Shift and the arrow keys will move you 10 frames at a time. So for 2 seconds in this composition, that is 6 presses of the key. And we'll just drop in a new selection of keyframes. Now, when we go back to the first one, we can decrease all of these scales to 0. Now, when you did that, you probably noticed that the rotation turned off, but that's not a problem because they're not actually going to appear at the same time unless you want them to. And you'll see why that doesn't affect it in a moment. So let's right click these keyframes. Easy ease, and we'll just make them go from fast to slow. Okay, and what I did there was pretty simple, but I'll just run through it again for those who might be watching this video and haven't done my intro to motion graphics series. Is I right clicked all the keyframes. I went to keyframe resistant easy ease, which makes them just start slowly and end slowly. I then went to our graph view editor, and I just dragged the keyframes so that the movement goes from very fast and slows down nice and calmly. So if we were to go through that now, you'd notice it sort of folds out from fast to slow. So let's just pre-render that and have a look. Okay, bam, it's rendered. You can see that the shapes fold out, but at the moment they're all folding out at the same time, which might be the effect that you want, but it isn't the effect that I showed you. So let's get the effect that I showed you in the thumbnail so you know that I'm not ripping you off. I'm just gonna need a bit more breathing room in this composition. So I'll quickly change that up to 10 seconds in the composition settings, and I'll select all my layers and just extend them to the end of the composition like so, okay? Then there's a quick shortcut here, which is quite useful for shifting layers along. if I navigate to the last keyframe of this left animation, that's when I want the fold animation to start. So I can simply press open square bracket and it pushes that along, okay? Move along to the last frame of the fold animation, select the right hand layer and press the same open square bracket again, and it pushes the frame along to start where that point is, which basically means that now, if I drop down to a quarter view so we can scrub a bit easier, the first section animates out, then the second section, and then the third. Now, if I were to extend this layer, you can see that it still does, or you could do rather if this was at say 10% scale. You can see that the previous orientation still does affect these first sections here. You can see that it's not perfectly straight like it will be at the end here, okay? And that's because it still does get affected by the previous layer's orientation because it is pinned to it. However, because the scale is sitting at 0, you don't see any of it, so it doesn't matter, okay? So when it comes in, it looks like it's always been perfectly straight, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so let's pre-render and take a look at that. Okay, perfect. So that looks a little bit smoother now and a little bit more like the example which I showed you at the beginning. I've actually slowed this one down. The one in the beginning is a lot faster, but obviously if you wanted to do that, you just make it sort of 1 second between these keyframes rather than 2. So the last bit then is adding some camera movement and adding some text that sits along the top here to represent whatever it is that this figure is growing, because otherwise it's just a ribbon, it's not part of an infographic. So I'm going to drop back down to one view so I've got a bit more room to work with, and just going to type in some text. We'll just call it 7,000. Over 7,000. Okay, so 7,000, we're happy with that. We now need to make this a 3D layer. So it exists in 3D space. You can see that it's automatically been put on the 3D plane. And if we go back to 2 views again, you can see that it's lying flat in line with these shapes here. We probably don't want it to do that, okay? We probably want it to stand up, so it's physically standing up on top of the ribbon. And to do that, we can start by repositioning the anchor point to the center middle. Again, you can use the pan behind tool, and then using the rotation tool, we can rotate this shape until it stands up. So obviously that's going to be 90 degrees to be perfectly perpendicular. And then using the position tools, we can position it so it's over the center of our line, okay? And if we go to a different view here, say left view, we can probably see that yes, it does start in roughly the center. We can probably fix that to be exactly the center. There we go. So back down to one view. So that's it. It exists in 3D space, but it looks a bit thin because at the moment it is. So all we need to do is extrude that. Okay, so if we twirl down this here until we get to the geometry options, we went through this in the previous one with pie charts, but basically you turn up the extrusion depth until you get a width that you're happy with. I think 100 is way too much, maybe 25 will do. And we pick a color for it. Just for this one, I'm gonna pick a different color than white. So I'm gonna go for this dark blue, which is part of the TipTut color palette. And we need a new color for the shaded segments because at the moment, it doesn't look any different. There's no light differentiation. So all the sides are the same. And that's nice and simple. All you need to do is go down to this additional tab here, and under side, you can just see new color and new RGB color. Okay. And now that adds to the sides a different color. Same thing again. You can pick whatever color you like. I've got a predefined one that's just a little bit darker. And that's it. You've changed the 3D shapes to have different colors on the sides. You can do the same for the bottom, top, whatever shape you want to put there. Now, if you wanted to, you could add a bit of depth to these and extrude them. I'm not sure what that will look like. We can give it a go. It might look terrible, but let's see. It could be interesting. So go down to the geometry options and extrude by let's say 15. Okay. So that gives it a little bit of extra chunk. It doesn't seem to have broken anything though. So let's see if we can stick with that and see what it looks like at the end. Geometry options again, extrusion 15. Again, we see it's starting to break it a little bit there because it isn't something we planned for. But since we have no position keyframes, we could try and fix that by just tweaking. Okay, might be able to get away with it. Let's try this last one. Geometry options, extrusion depth, not on the text, sorry, on the right here. Let's make that 15. Okay, doesn't look too bad. Let's keep it for now for the sake of illustration, but remember, of course, that you don't need to do this step if you don't want to. And let's just copy and paste these side colors, if I can find where I put them. There we go, animator 1, range selector 1, side color. Can you copy and paste that? No, it doesn't look like you can. That's no problem. Let's collapse all of these so it's a bit easier to work with, like so. And we'll just go through and add those colors in. Add side color. Okay. Sorry, didn't have my rectangle selected. Add side color, there we go. And we'll make that this slightly darker yellow. And we'll do the same to the left-hand segment, making sure that we've got our rectangle selected. Different to the text because the text was the only thing on that layer, whereas this shape layer could have several shapes on it. Side and color, change that to the darker yellow. And on this segment here in the middle, we probably want a darker yellow, seeing as that shade is the same as the base color for this one. So contents, rectangle, add side color. And we'll make it a bit of a darker orange from our palette. Okay, perfect, there we go. So whether that looks good or not, I don't know. Just to say that yes, you can make these shapes 3D as well. There's no reason why you can't, like the text. And that is it. Let's add in some camera movement and see what this thing looks like. Okay, drop down those like so. Make sure that's below it just for neatness' sake. Oh, last thing then, sorry, we need to animate this section of text here. So I'm just going to do a quick scale and rotate animation on this. So I'm going to pin the anchor point to the bottom left, like so. And I'm going to bring up scale and rotation, and I'm going to keyframe both of them, probably with, yes, with Y rotation. Move along, say 2 seconds. Put in some new keyframes, go back to the first, make the scale 0, and make the Y rotation -90. Then I'm going to grab these here, keyframe assistant, easy ease, make them go from fast to slow, and see what that looks like. Not too bad, actually. There we go. You could do a lot more with it, but I think for the sake of demonstration, that works just fine. Let's add in a bit of camera movement then, starting with where we want it to be finished, so we know what the final product's going to look like. We can bring up the position with P and the point of interest with A, which may not change, but it's best to keyframe it anyway, just in case you accidentally do. And let's, using the unified camera tool, rotate, translate, and zoom, and just going through those, let's find an ending position that we're happy with. Okay, I know I probably want it to be a bit further closer to the camera, so we'll do that. We need to translate it so that it's roughly centering the frame. So let's have it finish up about there. And if we go back, we can have it start being a little bit zoomed further out. Difficult to see, obviously, when it hasn't been made yet. And looking at it from above just a little bit more. Okay, let's add an easy ease on those. But let's have it start and finish at the same speed, so no quick to slow. And let's just pre-render and see what that looks like. Ooh, I can already tell that I've zoomed in way too far. So I think what I'll do instead is from here, quickly zoom out. Like so. And then take this keyframe and paste it there so that I know that we're starting at a more reasonable zoomed out level. Okay, great. Let's pre-render and see what that looks like in full. Okay, and there we have our finished thing. Let's just watch it through. Nice smooth camera movement, nice growth from the 3D shapes there. I don't think I'm a fan of the extrusion depth on the actual ribbon. I think it looked better when it was flat, but hey, that's what you get for experimenting. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I hope you found this tutorial useful. There'll be more in the series to come. So if you didn't like this particular one, hopefully there'll be something in the future for you that you can use. And if you did like it, great, let me know. If there's anything you want to see in the future on this series, let me know in the comments below. Let me know on the Discord, which you can find a link to in the description, things like that. But overall, just, yeah, go out there and create it. Get going, get doing stuff, because that's the only way. That's the best way to learn, just by doing. So thanks very much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you all next time.
Remember to subscribe for more tips, tricks, and tutorials. Thanks for watching.